Who are the biblical Israelites? The world wants to know.
Should define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yet nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
But the world knows that's not true. So then, the question remains, who are the biblical children of Israel today? And to answer that question, we need to take a look at Black history, the redacted Black history. What if everything we thought we knew about Black history, its origins, its migrations, its faiths, had been filtered through a lens of distortion? What if the most profound truths had been deliberately buried beneath centuries of revision, euphemism, and silence? This investigative report was born from a simple but dangerous question. What did the old books really say? Not the textbooks of modern institutions, nor the filtered footnotes of polished scholars, but the first-hand writings of explorers, clergy, and lawmakers before the year 1850. Those who recorded what they saw without the need to conform to today's sanitized narratives. What we found inside those forgotten volumes will unsettle the foundations of accepted history. You are about to follow a long trail covered in dust. What you uncover may unsettle your assumptions, but it will bring you closer to a truth that cannot be denied. If you're ready to sift through the ashes of erased history and uncover what was never meant to be found, turn to Black History Case Files. Buried heritage where the veil is lifted, the redactions undone, and the true biblical Israelites stand revealed.
Hey, shalom, shalom, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Hopefully everybody's doing well, doing tube. Shalom, shalom to everyone that's in the chat. Shalom, shalom to my moderators. Peace and blessings, Ema, Sister Saul. Hopefully your family and everyone's doing good. Same with you, Sister Sarah. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Hey, family, we have an interesting, shout out to Sister Saul, waiting patiently on the release. Thanks for reminding me about that, Sister Saul. So just a quick note, family, as far as the book that's coming out, praise be to the Most High. It's been a labor of love. So I do have a book that's coming out. It's tentatively scheduled for this Sunday. The reason why I say tentatively scheduled, I'm still waiting to hear back from a few of the retailers. So it will either be Sunday or Monday, but I will know for sure tomorrow. And with that being said, just be on the lookout for a live, because what I'll do is probably on on Friday, right before Shabbat, what we'll do is just give an overview of where you can find it, what the cost is. I can actually tell you what the cost is. The cost of the book is going to be $24.95 for the paperback. So, wanted it to be priced competitively, and that's going to be for the paperback on Amazon, because I can't control the prices on the different retailers. So it may be that cost on Amazon, and maybe at Barnes and Noble it may have a different cost. I will sell it on my website as well. Probably for more than likely it will be cheaper, although the shipping costs might offset the cost that is if you purchase it from Amazon, because Amazon, if you have Amazon Prime, you're not paying for shipping. Anyway, we'll go over all that stuff, most high willing, on Friday. However, but the reason why we're here, family, have some interesting things. Just want to review with you, family. There are some things that's occurring that you may not be aware of, or maybe if you've seen it in the news, and you might be thinking, well, okay, so what? We have some interstellar rocks, right, going through our crossing through our solar system. So what? Doesn't really mean anything. However, being that we are getting ready to head into our feast days, our glorious feast days of the Most High, where we observe Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, feast, trumpets, Day of Atonement. It's just a great time of fellowship. It's an appointed time of fellowship with the Most High. And of course, the Day of Atonement is the most holiest day of the year, family. It is the most holiest day of the year for us. So it's interesting that, as you could probably tell from the thumbnail and also the title, it's interesting that we have an object that has entered into our solar system that will arrive, right next to Mars, right, around the Day of Atonement. And I know that, each we have, people observe the Day of Atonement on different times. I know we have different calendars or whatnot, but just going by the Day of Atonement that's online and stuff like that, it's lining up. So I just want to bring that out to you, fam, and also show you some interesting things that the news is not talking about. So with that being said, family, let's go ahead and get started. What I want to do is I'm going to play a couple of videos for you. One is, just a couple of videos to show you with people pointing out the irregularities or the odd traits associated with this object that just all of a sudden came into our universe, or came into our solar system. And also to show you that it's not just one object that came, it's actually one of three. And so this is the third object that has come into our universe, or I keep saying universe, our solar system. But let's take a look, fam. I'm just going to run a couple of quick videos for you. And let's start off with this first video. Let's check this out, family.
Other 3i Atlas update, and you can expect these things to be happening on a...
Oh, almost forgot to tell you. So the name of this object, the particular object that we're talking about tonight, is 3i Atlas. It was identified by the Atlas telescope. That's why it has Atlas in the name, I believe. But 3i Atlas is the name of this object.
Pretty regular basis on this channel, because this is an unusual event, to say the least. As a matter of fact, it's a unique event in the history of human astronomy, something that needs to be covered on a regular basis, regardless of what this object might be.
Now, he's not just gaslighting. He's not just saying that. Actually, fair use. Thank you. Thank you, sister. Fair use. But yeah, family, he's not gaslighting. He's telling facts that literally there's a couple of things that have happened associated with this object that have never, ever happened before. And we'll talk about this. But there are some characteristics, some things associated with this object that are the first ever. And this is why, we're kind of surprised that the news isn't, picking up on this and circulating the information about it, but they're just kind of keeping it in the background.
But as some of you have probably heard, Hubble has now grabbed the first images of 3i Atlas. And even though this object definitely appears to be a comet, looks can be deceiving, because as you can see from this particular footage, human-made objects can sometimes look very comet-like indeed. And once again, even though the mainstream media and the mainstream scientific community isn't advertising this very much, this particular comet is behaving very strangely indeed. And every new observation that we make of this object, we learn something new that only deepens the mystery of this object and makes some people wonder whether or not it might be here by design.
Yep. And the reason why he's saying that, family, and I actually have an expert from Harvard, I forgot the professor's name, but we'll play a clip from him, and he'll explain in his own words why this is an odd object. But basically, family, the narrative that's out on media right now is, mainstream media, is that, well, hey, this is a comet. We all know comets. Comets have the tail, when they go around the sun, the ice and the gas are projected back away from the sun. That's the behavior of a comet. Well, this one's a little bit different. And he's got, let's see, the doctor that I have coming up after this guy is going to point it out.
All of this and more coming at you on The Angry Astronaut right now. Artificial concept for 3i Atlas to more closely match what we've seen through the telescopes thus far. And this guy does all of this work for my channel for a new article from Dr. Avi Loeb as he addresses the comet-like appearance of 3i Atlas. Quote, images of the new interstellar object show a slight elongation along its direction of motion. However, the elongation beyond the angular width of background stars, the so-called point spread function, is exactly at the level expected from multiplying the object's speed of 60 kilometers per second by the exposure time of the telescope by about 100 seconds. This elongation is not mitigated by centering on the object's image and letting the background stars move relative to it. It results from the fact that a single snapshot of the image takes 100 seconds and the removal of distortions introduced by its acceleration is not perfect. The product of this exposure time and the speed of 3i Atlas yields a scale on the order of 6,000 kilometers, comparable.
All right. So I know he's giving a lot of scientific speak on that, family, but the one of the main points he's going to get to here is that, when he starts looking at these attributes, such as the comet tail that everyone's saying that's a tail on this comet, it's problematic when they compare it to what they're seeing in the telescope.
Consistent with a compact dust cloud or the surface of the object. But let's go ahead and quote from other articles about this topic instead of relying exclusively on Avi Loeb and see what they have to say. The Rubin Observatory gathered a lot of information about 3i Atlas before it was even recognized as an interstellar object. In a well-timed coincidence, this is according to the debrief.org, astronomers at the Rubin Observatory succeeded in capturing 3i Atlas in high-resolution images several days before the discovery was officially announced, offering the earliest and most detailed observations of the object to date as astronomers continue to amass data about it. The surprise discovery from the Rubin team is reported in a new paper which reveals that by late June, Rubin was already obtaining imagery that revealed the interstellar object during the new observatory's science validation phase.
Now, when they looked at this object through the telescope, they noticed a couple of odd characteristics of it. Now, when it comes to comets, sometimes they're irregular, they're all different kinds of shapes, right? These odd shapes. But what you'll see here in Dr. Avi Loeb, which is I'm going to play his video next, and that is this one appeared to be spherical, like a perfect orb. That was one. The second thing, and actually, let me, as I'm talking through this, let me see if I can bring up my my slides so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's bring this up, family. Okay. All right. So, and this is, these are my slides here. And just if in case you're wondering, all right, so why are we worrying about these, these heavenly bodies that are moving through our skies? Why are we even talking about comets and things and stars and stuff like that? And of course, we know about, Luke chapter 21. You can see it on the screen there, verse 25, but just if we read it down in context where it says, and they shall fall by the edge of the and they're talking about, this is a scripture or the prophecy that's talking about Israel. And it says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And this is one of the things where we say that there's only one people on planet Earth who have been led away captive into all nations. There's only one people, the so-called Negro. But let's keep going, family. It says, and they shall be led away. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Verse 25 says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Right. And so based off of verse 25, we see that there's going to be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And what Most High willing, what I'll show you before we end today in the broadcast today is I'm going to show you a sign in the stars, a sign in the stars. But before I send it over to Dr. Abilo, let me pull out a couple of interesting facts about this object that entered into our solar system, which is why it's people, scientists that are scientists that have been around for a long time, why they are panicking and why they are saying that you need to pay attention to this, and why folks that aren't scientists like myself, we might look at this and just kind of blow it off like, oh, this is just another rock coming through our solar system. Well, why is this object unique? So you can see it on the screen. One of the first things that caused scientists to take note was that this was the fastest interstellar object to ever enter our solar system. It was almost like it was shot out of a cannon. Boom. Right. It entered in. It was going at such a high rate. So it broke the record for the fastest interstellar object ever to enter our solar system. So you would have thought that someone would have brought that out. Someone would have written that in the news article and says, oh, the fastest object ever entered our solar system, the interstellar object. Not only, check this out, family, not only was it the fastest interstellar object ever, it was the largest interstellar object ever, roughly 7 miles in diameter. Family, this thing's big. So not only is it moving fast, it is big. So it broke two records, family, when it entered into our solar system. Again, this is why these scientists are paying attention. And then the next one, family, let's see if I can advance my slide here. Oh, bear with me. Just wondering why my screen is lagging. What I may do is, let me see if I might have to switch over to my other screen, because what it's doing, family, is actually skipping slides on me here. Let me do this. I am going to share my screen. So bear with me just for a second. Let me see. I'm going to do a stop sharing screen. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint slide. And I am going to let me bring it up this way here. Yeah, just bear with me just for a second, fam. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint slide instead, because for whatever reason, it's not showing up. So let me show you this PowerPoint slide. I know I don't have it in presentation mode, but you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so this is what we were talking about here, right? So we said it's the fastest interstellar object ever, so it broke that record. It's the largest interstellar object ever, so it broke that record. And like we talked about before, it's spherical, and it's not emitting any ice or gas. So remember, we talked about the comet, because people kept saying, well, it's a comet. But when they looked at it through the telescope, they didn't see any ice or gas around it. And then it says, and it appears to have high reflectivity. Oh, and by the way, this object that's going through the sky, it's red. It has a red glow to it, right up. And so it's a red orb or red sphere, not emitting any gas. It has a little bit of a tail, but the thing about the tail is that the tail, normally when a comet comes, into like a solar system where you have a sun, remember I said that the tail of the comet blows away from the sun. Well, the tail on this one is pointed towards the sun. So again, as they're looking at this thing, they're like, man, this thing's crazy. This thing's odd. It's breaking all the rules. It's the largest. It's the fastest. It's not emitting any gas or ice. It has this tail that's pointing towards the sun. It's going to intersect the plane of the planets in our solar system, and it's going to arrive at around the time of atonement. Right. Of course, they're not saying that part. We're saying that part. But I'm just saying, like, it's got people scratching their heads, and that's why Avi Loeb, the Harvard scientist, he actually threw in some extra possibilities. He was like, he's like, it could be a comet. He's like, it's as it gets closer, we get more data. We could in fact, get some more data that will confirm that, hey, these early, measurements and observations that we saw, they were incorrect. You know what? Yes, it's a comet. Now that it's closer, it's a comet. But he also said, he's like, that's a possibility. But he also said that also a possibility is that this thing is artificial in nature. And he's saying that, you need to keep that in mind, right? Don't throw that out, that possibility out. But just to kind of keep going through the list of odd, the anomalies associated with this object. The next thing is that it came from the center of our galaxy. So all these other, objects that enter in our solar system, they come from different places. But this one, which is the largest, the fastest, circular, came from the center of our galaxy. And they said, which is rare. So with all that being said, family, let me play a video of Dr. Avi Loeb. So he's the Harvard professor. And what we'll do is that I'm going to play it so that you can hear his credentials. And the interviewer, he's going to start off by reading his credentials. Then he's going to go into and let Dr. Avi Loeb describe why this object is odd. So let's take a look, fam.
Founding director of Harvard's Black Hole Initiative and director of the Institute for Theory and Computation within the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Among his many achievements, Avi is a best-selling author, has published over 700 papers and essays, made major contributions to scientific topics including black holes and gravitational microlensing, and received recognition and awards from dozens of prestigious scientific organizations and academic institutions. So Avi, welcome, sir. It is an honor to have you back with me. It has been quite a while.
Thanks for having me.
So today we are discussing themes from your Medium article, Preliminary Anomalies of 3I Atlas. And so I want to start by asking you for an overview of what this interstellar object is and what makes it unique.
Well, so the last decade was special in astronomy because we discovered the first objects from outside the solar system near Earth. It started with the discovery of Oumuamua by a telescope in Hawaii, given the name Oumuamua because it means scout in the Hawaiian language. This was a survey telescope, Pan-STARRS, that was looking for near-Earth objects and found this one, and it happened to be moving faster than the escape speed from the solar system. So that was the first one announced. About 100 meters in diameter, very unusual shape.
So hopefully the audio is okay on your end, family. I know it's kind of playing low on my computer. I could probably re-upload one that has a higher volume, but if you're okay, we'll proceed with this one. And also, family, just to reiterate what he's talking about. So basically, what he's saying, family, is that this decade has been unusual because we have had three objects. Because what I said at the top of this, this broadcast was that, there were actually three objects that entered in our solar system. And this latest one, this one that came from the center of the universe, the one that breaks the records of the fastest interstellar one, the largest interstellar one, and it's going to intersect with the solar plane in our solar system. He's going to talk about that last, but right now he's talking about the very first one. And just to kind of reiterate what he's saying that okay, says the volume's good. Okay, thank you. What he's saying is that this one's unusual, and that's because it has an irregular surface. But then he's going to say something. He's going to bring out a trait that he noticed about this first object that came through our solar system that nobody's talking about, that he thought was kind of odd. Let's check it out.
Most likely flat. The amount of sunlight reflected from it changed by a factor of 10 as it was tumbling every 8 hours. And there was no cometary evaporation from it. It was definitely not a comet of the type that we are familiar with. And nevertheless, it exhibited a non-gravitational acceleration away from the sun.
So he said, nevertheless, it exhibited a non-gravitational acceleration when it moved away from the sun. He said, nevertheless, it exhibited a non-gravitational acceleration when it moved away from the sun.
And then came a very familiar object, a comet, discovered by an amateur astronomer, Gennady Borisov, in 2019, 2 years later. That one looked just like comets that we know about from the solar system, icy rocks that evaporate as they come close to the sun. And except that this one was moving very fast, therefore came from interstellar space. We expect icy rocks to be ejected from planetary systems because of passing stars. These are usually residents of the outskirts of planetary systems, the Oort cloud of the solar system, going out to 100,000 times the Earth-Sun separation, where it's very cold and objects are moving really slowly there, is an example of the outskirts of a planetary system. And when a star passes through it, it can easily kick gravitationally an object from there to become unbound, because these objects are very weakly bound to their parent star. And so we expect most of the interstellar objects to be comets, and indeed we found Borisov, the second announced interstellar object. And now on July 1st, 2025.
Okay, so now he's going to talk about the third object, this one that we're talking about, 3I Atlas, the one that's the largest, the one that's the fastest.
Half-a-meter telescope in Chile discovered a third one. Now, this one was at a distance of 4.5 Earth-Sun separation, and the fact that half-a-meter telescope discovered it means that it was extremely bright. In fact, this small telescope scooped the Rubin Observatory that was inaugurated the same month. The Rubin team looked back at the data and discovered images of this object before it was announced or discovered by the Atlas team. That's the survey telescope that found it. And actually, the Atlas telescope is very close to the Rubin Observatory in Chile. Both of them are neighbors. Now, as soon as I heard about 3I Atlas, this new object, within the same day, I was actually in the early morning hours, I was interviewed on Coast to Coast. I woke up at 2 a.m. and I learned about it from a listener to that program that emailed me and said, look, this was just discovered. And so I followed it. And within hours from the discovery, I realized this one is extremely unusual, because if it's a rock,
he said, this one is extremely unusual. And this is a Harvard professor.
It's an asteroid, has to be 20 kilometers in diameter in order to reflect enough sunlight to be so bright. And the problem with that is Oumuamua is roughly 100 meters in diameter, and there should be 1 million objects like Oumuamua for one that is 20 kilometers in diameter, based on what we know about the solar system. And we haven't discovered 1 million Oumuamuas before 3I Atlas. And so that was strange. And also, if you were to take a rock that is 20 kilometers in diameter and imagine that such a rock arrives in the inner solar system every 5 years, because the survey was looking at the sky for 5 years and found this one, then the supply of interstellar rocks into the solar system exceeds by a factor of almost 10,000 the amount of rocky material available in interstellar space based on my calculations. So actually on the 4th of July, instead of enjoying the vacation that I had with my wife, I wrote a scientific paper, submitted it for publication. It was accepted for publication within a few days, basically making the point that this object, if it is natural in origin, must be much smaller than 20 kilometers, probably less than a kilometer in diameter. So 20 times smaller, 8,000 times less massive. And then to explain the brightness, one would need to assume that it's surrounded by a cloud of dust that is much bigger and reflects much more sunlight than the object itself. And so if it's a comet, then everything holds together and it would be a small nucleus of that comet. You wouldn't need as much mass. It would be completely reasonable, not very different, maybe a little bit larger, maybe a factor of 2 or 3 larger than Borisov. But we don't know that for a fact, because when people tried to measure the spectrum of this object, they didn't find any evidence for the molecular fingerprints of molecules and atoms that represent the composition of commas.
Yep. So when they looked at it, you looked at the molecular fingerprint of it, family, it did not match the fingerprint of a comet.
A cometary tail. Instead, all they noticed is reddening of the reflected sunlight, meaning that it could be a cloud of dust, but it could also be the surface of an object that is red, because we see a lot of objects that are red in the outer solar system. And so as of now, it's not 100% clear whether this object is a comet. When you look at the images, there is fuzz around the object, and it could be a comet. The image is a little bit bigger than that of background stars that are point-like. But as it comes closer to the sun, it would become clear whether it's a comet, because if it's a comet, it will evaporate much more vigorously as it gets heated by sunlight. And but nevertheless, I was a co-author on a paper with Adam Hibberd and Adam Crowell, where we said the orbit, the trajectory of this object appears to be quite remarkable. It arrives within 5 degrees of the orbital plane of the Earth around the sun. And the chance of that happening randomly is 0.2%. And moreover,
Yeah, he's just saying like the path that it's taken it's on, yeah, the odds of that just happening randomly is he's just saying that it's almost impossible.
will arrive closest to the sun when the Earth is on the opposite side of the sun. And moreover, if you just play with the arrival time randomly, you would notice that only 1 out of 20,000 arrival times would come as close to the inner planets like Jupiter, Mars, or Venus. So that is an unusual coincidence. And why would such a trajectory be so unusual? Well, one possibility is if it was designed by some intelligent civilization, it also comes towards us from the direction of the galactic center, from the Milky Way center, where there are lots of stars, and it's very difficult to notice it. That's why we discovered it so late. By now, it's impossible for us to launch a rocket that will intercept with it, because it would move relative to Earth. It comes in the opposite direction of the motion of Earth around the sun, and the relative velocity would be 98 kilometers per second when it comes closest to the sun. And that is 3 times the maximum speed that we can accomplish with chemical rockets. And so there is no way for us to reach it, to intercept with it. And perhaps it wants to break, like when we launch rockets and we want to accomplish a very high speed, we usually introduce a thrust near the sun, and that buys you the highest kick velocity, taking advantage of the gravitational assist by the sun. And so if this object wants to do a reverse maneuver, meaning to slow down and get bound to the sun so that if it's a spacecraft, so that they can visit us, that would be the point where we can't see it because it's hiding behind the sun.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, what he was saying, family, because basically he was just saying that, you can use the sun's gravity to either, to slow down. Is from what I took from it. And he was like, if the fact that it's taking that trajectory where it could slow down, that's he said that's unusual. So he's just calling it out. He's not necessarily calling it a spaceship. I like his approach. I mean, he's being he's being open-minded about it, right? He's not saying that, hey, this thing's alien. He's not saying that, hey, this thing's not a comet. He's saying it could be either or. He's like, it could be a comet, but then he goes off and he starts rattling off the things that don't line up with it being a comet, which is when they look at the molecular fingerprint of it, it doesn't look like a comet. And one of the things that he didn't say, at least yet in this interview, was the behavior of the dust that's around it isn't indicative of a comet. Also, he said that it has a reddish color, which is not indicative of a comet. He briefly mentioned the I don't know if he mentioned it yet about it being spherical too, but that's just another anomaly as well. Then he also talked about how this object came from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and that because it came from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, it was hard for the instruments to pick it up.
And it raises the interesting possibility that might be technological in origin. Of course, we will know much more in the coming month or two, and it may not be it may be just a comet, but I think it's important to consider the possibility that any interstellar object coming into the solar system might be technological, because if you just consider the last century, we started transmitting radio signals, basically flagging that.
All right, so he's getting ready to go off onto some theoretical hypotheticals. So basically just saying that, hey, we started transmitting stuff into space, and based off of the time, they could be sending probes back and all this other stuff. But long story short, family, and actually let me pull up my PowerPoint just so that we can talk about, you can see what I'm talking about here. So I'm gonna actually put this back in presentation mode. So bear with me just for a second, fam. I just want to go back over our list here. So let's do this. Let's do a share screen. And then let's do a PowerPoint view. All right. So hopefully you can see that. But just wanted to go back over the the things that are causing the scientific community to pause and look at this object closer than what they would normally look at, and that is 3I Atlas, which is the name of this object. It's the fastest interstellar object ever to enter in the solar system. It's the largest interstellar object ever to enter into our solar system. Like we said before, it literally came from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. They said it's spherical. It's not emitting any gas. It doesn't line up when they look at the composition of it. It doesn't line up with the composition of a comet, but people are calling it a comet. It's red. It's highly reflective. So of course the doctor was saying that it could be a surface that's being reflective, or it could be a shiny dust that's around it. He's like, we don't know. We'll know when it gets a little bit closer, right? And then the other thing, family, which is what we're going to talk about, is it's scheduled to arrive right around the Day of Atonement. Now that's huge, family, and let's take a look. And with that in mind, family, let's take a look at just a couple of things. All right. And this is one of the images that you may see out there on YouTube. And just to kind of put this into perspective, some people are saying like this long line is the object. it's yes and no. What it is that whatever this camera is taking pictures of the objects using different camera exposures, different colors. So that's why that causes the object to appear in different colors. Basically, it's either moving from left to right or right to left, but it's causing it to look like it's a line, but it's really in an orb. So you may see people that look at this and say, "Hey, this is the object, and it has all these different colors." It's just a byproduct of the imaging that they're doing. It's not that the object is linear; it's actually spherical. It's a circle. It's an orb. All right, and so as we were talking about the feast days that are coming up, so we have feast days that are coming up. The Most High works by His calendar, right? He works by His feast days. His feast days, they are days for meaning, right? And you can see on the screen we have I'll just call them in layman's terms here, but we have the Feast of Trumpets, or we have trumpets. Then we have the Day of Atonement. Then we have Tabernacles, right? So and I know across the Hebraic community, everyone for the most part we observe on different days, but I'm just pulling out a date that's recognized on the calendar. So this is a date recognized on the calendar where we have Atonement. It's right around October the 1st. You can see it there. You might have yours a little bit sooner or a little bit later, but October the 1st, October the 2nd is Atonement, followed by Sukkot on the 6th. And so these are the dates associated with 3 eye Atlas. And it says close approach to Mars, October the 3rd. Right. You can see some of these other dates in there. We'll actually point out some of this stuff in our following slides, but just want to point out that right around Atonement is when it's right in our solar system. It's right next to Mars. So now I want to call your attention to the constellations. So remember, Most High said He gave us the sun and the moon and the stars for signs. So then the question would be, family, for the Israelite community, is this a sign? And so in order to figure out if this is a sign, we look at the stars, right? We follow the scriptures, right? The scripture says, look at the sun, the moon, and the stars for signs. So let's take a look at the path that this object, which comes from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, which is the fastest, and the fastest and largest that we have seen to date, and it's red in color, right? Has all these weird characteristics that's showing up on the Day of Atonement. Let's see what constellations this thing moves through, just to see if there's any parallel, right? And I'll leave it up to you, family, to make up your own mind. So you'll see I have a red line here, and it's going from Libra, which is, those scales of justice, all the way up to the woman, which is the woman, like if you remember in Revelation, we talked about the woman with the sun and the moon and the stars and stuff like that. That's the Virgo sign. That's the woman. And the woman represents Israel. I'll say it again. The woman represents Israel. So what's happening, family, is that this object is moving from the scales of justice to around the hand of Israel. Now, there are different map plots of the direction. So one of the map plots has it going to the hand. Another map plot has it going a little closer to the body. But this is one of the first ones that I saw. And you can't really see these because, these don't have the actual pictures overlaid on top of the stars. But it's just want to show you a timeline, right? So show it going through the scales of justice, heading towards the woman. The woman is down here, which represents Israel, is down here, right? And this is the one where I said it actually shifts over. Instead of going to the hand of Israel, is actually going towards the body. And then as it continues, as this red orb continues to fly across the sky, across the stars, it then ends up or crosses the lion, right? And of course, we know the lion represents Judah. So the this object, right around the Day of Atonement, I guess if we're looking at timeline wise, let me see if I can back up. So timeline wise, Day of Atonement is going to be closest to Mars right here, right before it gets to the woman leaving the scales of justice, heading towards the sign of Israel. And then as it crosses through the sky, it's going to cross through the woman, which represents Israel, and then it's going to cross through the lion, which represents Judah. And that's this random object that just so happened to enter into the solar system. And out of all these constellations that it could have crossed, around these feast days, this object crosses through the woman of Israel and the lion of Judah in the stars. So I see somebody saying about the archer. Yeah, the woman, yeah, she is like an archer as well. So who knows what that means. Yep. And I'm not putting anything together. I'm just sharing the information with you about it, family, just to let you know, hey, not only is this a random big object from the center of the universe, the fastest object ever, the largest object ever, that doesn't quite look like a comet. They can't really figure out what it is. They need it for it to get closer. But I also want you to know that right around the feast days, a little bit after the feast days, is going to cross over in the sky. It's going to cross over the woman, which represents Israel. Then it's going to cross over the lion of Judah. So make of it as you will. But I just wanted to put it out there that this is what's going to happen, most high willing, in October. Of course, in September, it looks like it's going to be over in those scales of justice. Yeah. September in the scales, around the scales of justice, and then leaving the scales of justice, heading towards Israel, the woman, leaving Israel, the woman, going towards the line of Judah. So there you go. All right. So take of it as you will, family. Just keep an eye out on it, just to see if there's anything, pray about it, see if it's anything, of significance. But the fact that it, like I said, out of all these constellations it could have crossed, it ends up crossing the woman of Israel and the line of Judah. And it came out of the center of the universe. You can't just make that up. So anyway, but yeah, just wanted to let you know about that, family. So again, peace and blessings. Just another shameless plug for the book coming out this weekend. Most High willing, just be on the lookout for it on Sunday. I will be doing, most High willing, a live on Sunday, just to kind of walk folks through the purchasing process and where to find it and stuff like that in detail. Again, the cost of the book is going to be $24.95 for the paperback, and I hold off on the hardcover, because the hardcover price will vary depending on where you get it from, but it's not going to be that expensive. So anyway, but hopefully that blessed your family, and we'll keep an eye out on it, and if anything happens, any new information comes out, we'll be sure to let you know. So love your family, peace and blessings, and shalom.
Who are the biblical Israelites? The world wants to know.
Should define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants
God's
of
referring
Abraham
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
But the world knows that's not true. So then, the question remains. Who are the biblical children of Israel today? And to answer that question, we need to take a look at Black history, the redacted Black history. What if everything we thought we knew about Black history, its origins, its migrations, its faiths, had been filtered through a lens of distortion? What if the most profound truths had been deliberately buried beneath centuries of revision, euphemism, and silence? This investigative report was born from a simple but dangerous question. What did the old books really say? Not the textbooks of modern institutions, nor the filtered footnotes of polished scholars, but the first-hand writings of explorers, clergy, and lawmakers before the year 1850. Those who recorded what they saw without the need to conform to today's sanitized narratives. What we found inside those forgotten volumes will unsettle the foundations of accepted history. You are about to follow a long trail covered in dust. What you uncover may unsettle your assumptions, but it will bring you closer to a truth that cannot be denied. If you're ready to sift through the ashes of erased history and uncover what was never meant to be found, turn to Black History Case Files. Buried heritage where the veil is lifted, the redactions undone, and the true biblical Israelites stand revealed.